Hi, I'm Steph Strickland with GeekWire Studios, and I'm your host for Does Compute, the podcast where we delve into the latest innovations in computer science with the help from experts at Carnegie Mellon University's School of Computer Science. I am joined right now by Professor Anil Ada, an associate teaching professor in the computer science department at CMU. His courses are, dare I say, legendary among the students, including great ideas in theoretical computer science, 15251, we'll talk about that, which have become some of the school's most popular. He also developed Panda Notes, a web application designed to enhance the educational experience by integrating course content with interactive features. Professor, thanks so much for making the time today.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I want to start by asking you how you view computer science and the way it's taught at Carnegie Mellon University.
Well, I think one thing that is really unique about CMU and with respect to teaching is that it is really taken very, very seriously here. It's something that I have not seen before coming at CMU. Just the level of passion, work, heart that goes into teaching at this place is just unbelievable. And one of the things that makes this possible is, I think, the amazing group of students that we have that after taking the course, they will start TAing the course, and they add a lot of energy and support into the course. And, all of this together makes the very special, unique learning environment, I would say.
I love this because you actually talked about serious things, but I view this entire segment as something that has a measure of fun behind it, because it is through fun and engaging students in learning that you've managed to take the serious business of it and make it something that students can tackle head on. I've got a couple of things that I noted in what you said. Let's start with the TA system. That is unique to CMU, something that's not typically seen in other universities. Can you explain to me what makes the student interaction so important in managing the rigors of learning at CMU?
Yeah. So, first of all, it's a bit unique at CMU because we actually get our TA pool from undergraduate students. So, in my own institution where I did my undergrad and PhD, and I think in a lot of universities, TAs are graduate students. And for graduate students, their focus is on research. Their number one priority is research. So it's different when undergraduate TAs are involved. And undergraduate TAs, one of the reasons why they're so effective is because they took the course maybe a semester or two ago. They went through exactly the things that the current students are going through. They know exactly what they struggled with. They know exactly what worked for them. And they can carry that information and all that feeling to their current students, and they can share their experience, their thoughts, their suggestions. They can form closer connections with the students. One system, for example, that I have in my course is every TA is a mentor to about 10 to 15 students. Or maybe another way to say this is that every student gets a mentor TA assigned to them. And the reason for this is that, well, I have like 200, 250 students. And it's hard for me to sort of one-on-one see how my students are doing at that scale. And from the students' perspective, they can be a bit hesitant to reach out to me. They can feel a bit intimidated sometimes. So the TA is kind of like a bridge between the students and myself, but the students feel much more comfortable going and talking to their TAs, who are their peers, obviously, and they feel like they can get the support that they need from their TAs. They can share their concerns, and the TAs, if they would like me to get involved, can ask me to get involved, and I'm happy to meet with my students as well. But at the root of it, all of this, the magic, where does it come from? It comes from the human connection.
You've just described a perfect, almost mid-sized company corporate culture, right? You're sort of leading the charge.
It is that. I mean, I do really view this as like running a small company where I have about 20 to 25 TAs per semester. Those are my employees. And then I have about 200, 250 students, kind of like the customers. And yes, I'm like kind of like the CEO of this small company. Um, but in terms of the organizational structure, it's very similar. But we always focus. I mean, our motive is not to make profit here. Our focus is to create a special, valuable educational experience for the students. So that's the goal and the focus.
What a great currency, right?
Yeah.
I love that. You talk about the human connection. How are you able to integrate computer science and AI into learning opportunities for your students, particularly given the subject matter that you're teaching?
Yeah, so we live in an interesting time. So we have now these amazing AI tools that are changing the dynamics of education a little bit. A lot of people think about these tools in terms of how can I make sure that we don't lose the effectiveness of our teaching? What do I mean by this? Well, we can see some students maybe perhaps using these AI tools to do the work for them, and that reduces the effectiveness. Putting that aside, I don't think that's the most interesting aspect of all of this. The more interesting aspects are, one, how do we use these AI tools to better teach and increase our effectiveness in teaching and learning? And another, I think, important question that is not maybe talked about as much as it should be talked about is, how do these new technologies change our priorities in terms of what we should be teaching, and what kind of skills we want our students to have in the future? So we have to think about that. Now, in terms of the second point that I made, like how can we increase our effectiveness of teaching? There are various ideas. There are things that I'm trying out in my course to see what can be effective and what cannot be effective. One thing about my course, for example, is that it's a math course. It's a proof-based course. In my course, the students are writing proofs of mathematical statements. And one tool that we have deployed and are trying out is we have an AI assistant that gives students feedback on the style of their proofs, not on the correctness. I am not sure if the AI tools currently are good enough to grade correctness for the proofs that the students write, but they are, I believe, good enough to give style feedback. And communicating, how we communicate these ideas, how we communicate proofs is a very important part of my course. It's something that I try to emphasize a lot. So it's not just about correctness. We want students to effectively communicate those ideas, write their proof in good style, have a good structure, and so on. And we find that actually the current AI tools are very effective at giving such feedback to the students, very detailed and nice feedback to the students. And then the students incorporate that feedback and update their proofs and make their write up better. So that's one idea. Another idea we're trying out is an AI chat tutor. So as the students are going through the textbook and reading the content, there is an AI chat tutor available to them, which can actually help them with clarification questions, some conceptual questions, some confusions that they might have. To be clear, this is not homework help. So this is not available to them when they're doing the homework. This is really when they're going through the content and trying to understand the fundamentals, for clarification questions. As I said, some basic conceptual questions. We find that the current AI tools are pretty good at that, and having such a tool available 24/7 it has been very effective, and students like it. I've gotten positive feedback about this, and I can see on the course website, that students are really using this heavily.
There is precedent for using tools to evaluate your work with coding and other examples. So it makes sense that you could deploy AI in this fashion, not to do the work for them, but to sort of check the progress of things and sort of how
Yeah.
good the work looks.
Yeah.
I'm keen on something you talked about with an AI chat tutor and really how it approaches the way you view learning when you started at CMU more than a decade ago versus now. I would imagine the foundation of it is the same. What's changing are the tools to get you there. But I'm curious from your perspective, how has education changed even in the last decade?
Um, yeah, so I would say that it has not changed fundamentally in the last 10 years, but at the same time, it is currently changing fundamentally right now, I would say. Now, there is a little twist here, which is the pandemic. And that obviously did change a lot of things during that period of 1 to 2 years when we were teaching online. Obviously, we had to rethink everything and make sure that we somehow try to preserve the human element of it. Like I always emphasize, like, teaching and learning is really about those human connections fundamentally. And how do you preserve that when everything is online and everything is over Zoom? That was a big challenge. So, but putting that aside, I would say that last 10 years, things haven't changed fundamentally, but things are changing fundamentally right now. And this is due to the introduction of these advanced AI tools. As I said already, some of these tools can be sort of a bit disruptive if the students are not using it the right way. But there's an enormous opportunity. I really do believe that there's an enormous opportunity to actually think about how these tools can be incorporated to not only teach the material better, but make it more fun to the students as well. I would say make it a bit more interactive. And there are a lot of people thinking about this, and I feel like it is a responsibility from the professor's perspective, from the teaching side. It's our responsibility to really take this seriously and see if we can do things better.
If you're looking to produce students who are leading the next generation, it behooves them to understand the tools that are available to them. So I appreciate the swiftness with which CMU and professors like yourself have pivoted to make sure that those tools are integrated appropriately into the work that they're doing. I think it's brilliant. Aside from that, I do want to talk about some of the fun stuff. Tell me about Cilantro.
Sure. Cilantro is our course mascot. This goes back, I would say, maybe about 10 years or 9 years. It started with one TA, or maybe a group of TAs, I don't quite remember, finding this cartoon character called Motivating Giraffe. This is by an artist in Australia. She makes these cartoon drawings of a motivational giraffe, which are cute drawings with like a nice motivational message in them. And our TAs basically started to introduce this motivational draft into the course slowly. Right before exams, they would show up in the screen like, a motivational draft giving like a motivational quote. And one of the TAs asked the artist to actually make a specific drawing for my course, 15 to 51. And she made a very beautiful drawing of the motivational draft, like teaching on the board as the professor with like 251 content on the board. And that became the course's image and the course's picture, basically. And later, it basically started to become a mascot for the course. We got a stuffed animal. We gave it a name. It has an Instagram account, and it shares stories and stuff like this. And students love it. It makes the course more fun. It adds a fun element to everything that we're doing. At the end of the day, like one thing that I tell my students in the first lecture, you know, one of my priorities, maybe the most important priority for me, is that they have fun learning this stuff, right? And if they're not having fun, I say, come and complain to me. So that is very important to me, and I think Cilantro does a lot in terms of making sure that the students are having fun. And this has actually spread to other courses as well. Now it's computer science, CMU. Basically, pretty much all the courses have a mascot and a stuffed animal, and it's pretty fun.
I watched one of your available lectures online, and it It was tackling a subject that is well beyond my pay grade, but you started with a very human question, which was, what does it mean to be you? And that is how you set up the entirety of the lecture. And hearing how you're starting with something that is relatable, I think puts a button on the conversation about how important it is for you to relate these concepts that exist in challenging mental environments back to who we are as people. What drew you to theoretical computer science in the first place?
It's a good question. So I would say that the reason I got into computer science to begin with was because I really enjoyed programming, and creating programs was really fun, a creative process. On the other hand, even in my first semester as an undergrad, I realized that maybe programming was not the main thing that I wanted to focus on. And I was drawn by mathematics and writing proofs and the rigor of that mathematics provides. So, I mean, there was a point where I was even considering switching to mathematics altogether, but I decided I'll stick with computer science. So I decided to do a double major with computer science and mathematics. And that naturally led me to theoretical computer science, because theoretical computer science, ultimately is kind of like the intersection of computer science and mathematics. I found a nice home there because just in terms of pure mathematics, if I think back at my courses as an undergrad, they didn't always resonate with me. I love the rigor, but somehow it felt a bit disconnected from the real world, if I am completely honest. Um, and then in terms of computer science, I was interested in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and I wanted to learn more about those. But somehow those courses did not resonate with me either, because I felt that maybe the rigor that we have in mathematics was not always there. And in theoretical computer science, I found the perfect marriage of, well, first of all, it's mathematics and there's the rigor. But second of all, we are actually studying something very fundamental and something very important, which is computation and computers. What can we solve efficiently? What we cannot solve efficiently, and so on. And that was perfect for me.
You've described the importance of deep subject matter expertise when it comes to teaching. How can you teach if you don't understand the subject inside and out, because you have to start laying a foundation to be able to get to some of the finer points. Tell me a little bit about Panda Notes.
Yeah, sure. So Panda Notes is a web application that I built over time. The intention was that I wanted an application where instructors can upload course content so that it natively shows on the web page. And course discussions, questions and answers are integrated tightly into the course content, so that when a student is reading the textbook, at that point where they're reading, they can immediately open up a text box and ask a question, which will be then received by maybe other students or the course staff, and we can respond to it. So it's really in context discussions and interactions. With the introduction of these AI tools, obviously now I have been able to incorporate the AI tools into Panda Notes, so that now it supports, like we discussed, chat tutor, AI chat tutor. It supports students making homework submissions and getting some feedback for that homework submission, as we discussed, like getting style feedback on their homework, and potentially other things. So it's built in a flexible way to be able to support different kinds of ideas along these lines. And yeah, it's been a successful tool, I would say. When we get feedback from the students, it seems like they like to use it, and it's been a good part of 251.
I want to talk about something you just mentioned with both 15.155 as well as 15.251. How does the intersection of this deep theory really apply to solving real world problems? What examples are you providing to students in class so they understand this in the broader scope of things?
Yeah, in terms of sort of real world applications of theory or the foundations of computer science, I mean, there's so many examples one can give, but let's say one nice example would be cryptography. So whenever we are doing anything online, let's say, you're buying something, or even if you're not buying something, but like you type in HTTPS and then some URL, that S there stands for secure, and there's some cryptographic protocol going on in the background to make sure that whatever information you're sending through the internet is first encrypted and sent in that fashion. Now, in cryptography, we can do a lot of amazing things, from sending secure messages to digital signatures to other things. A lot of the cryptocurrencies used today also have these kinds of cryptographic elements and protocols built into them. The reason why we can do all this amazing stuff in cryptography is basically due to computational complexity considerations. These are based on the assumption that certain problems, computational problems, are actually hard to solve. And this assumption of computational hardness is at the root of all of these applications. It makes everything possible in the land of cryptography. So having a good understanding of okay, what does it mean for a problem to be computationally hard? How can we recognize if some problem is hard? How do we know when it's easy? All of it is important, and something that we talk about in our course. But another application, maybe looking into the future, you might say, let's talk about quantum computers now. That's like a hot topic these days.
Especially in photography.
Right, exactly. And you can say, okay, how did this idea of quantum computation come about? We don't even have quantum computers right now, but there's like an amazing, rich field in quantum computation, a lot of researchers doing a lot of amazing work. And it starts with, a theoretical model, an idea of how can I actually use the quantum properties of particles like electrons and photons to construct a computational device that maybe can solve some problems more efficiently compared to how we know how to solve right now. But it starts with a concrete mathematical model, an idea, and then people have studied this model very rigorously. And now we are trying very hard actually to make this a reality. And we want the engineering side of things, the practice side of things, to catch up to our theoretical ideas, so that we can realize these wonderful applications that quantum computers promise us.
As you look in your teaching crystal ball, what do you see as the next big change coming our way? We're just dipping our toes, perhaps, into the power of AI and machine learning. It's not new, but it is rapidly changing the discourse of education. What do you see as coming down in the future?
Yeah, so I get this question often. In fact, I have some friends who have kids, and they're asking me, how should we, advise our kids about the future, and so on and so forth. The honest answer is I don't know. And the reason I say that is because there is rapid change, but it's not entirely clear how this will look like in 5 years and how this will look like in 10 years. Where are we going? What is this approaching to? And with that uncertainty, it's really hard to, think about well, how should we prepare for the future? I don't know what that future looks like to begin with. We have some ideas. It's not that we don't know anything, but nevertheless, will this progress eventually converge to something? And what is that limit point or convergence point? It is not clear. I mentioned something before, which was that all these advances should make us question or reevaluate what are our priorities for teaching. What do we want our students to know? What new skills do we want our students to know? And we really have to go back to the beginning and think about this completely from scratch. And this has been a challenge. So this is also something that I'm thinking about. But if I said like I have the answers, I am not sure. Maybe I can point to two things that is still the pillars for me in terms of like how I see education and what I prioritize. One is that one of the pillars in my course is to teach students how to reason, or I should say, maybe reason better, more accurately, more reliably. This is going to be, I believe, always important because whenever we're navigating life, I don't care what field you're in, you have to reason about your environment, you have to reason about other people, you have to reason with other people. And this will always be an important skill. And we will have to reason with the AIs as well, I guess. And then the second important part of this, I would say, communication. And I would like to teach my students how to communicate well, how to communicate effectively. Um, whether we are trying to resolve conflicts with others or whether we are trying to sort of do something together with others, whether we are trying to push what we know and create new technologies and whatever, this happens through communication with other people, through collaboration with other people, through sharing our work with other people. And now you can also say with the advance of AI tools, we have to also learn how to talk to them and how to communicate with these AI tools. So once again, effective communication there is very important. So those are the two things, reasoning and communication. These will be, I think, pillars that we will always find important, foundational. Beyond that, if you now go anything more specific beyond that, I would say I don't know.
That's an interesting chicken and egg. It's training on data that we gave it, both verbally and mathematically. And so who is communicating with anyway? My my final question to you is, what have your students taught you about yourself?
uh wow, that's a good question. I never thought about this before. Well, the students, I would say, taught me what I value in my profession. And when I came to CMU, when I started my teaching career, if you ask me, like, why do you like teaching? What brings you to teaching? I would have maybe said, I love the topics that I teach. They're just so cool. And I just want to share that with other people. And over the years, I found that what makes teaching special for me is, once again, the connections that I form with my students. And it's not just connections at the intellectual level, but it's also connections at the personal level. And if I'm able to, in some minor way, um, affect them in a positive way, give them some advice that they find useful, um, change a little bit how they view things, change a little bit how they view computer science or mathematics. This is the secret sauce for me. And I realized over the years, like, this is really fundamentally what I care about and what I cherish the most.
Professor Ada, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Does Compute, the podcast where we examine how computer science is building useful stuff that works. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I'm Steph Strickland with GeekWire Studios.